Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. This is October of 2014. In just a few weeks, it will be Veterans Day, and we all remember the veterans, so many of them here in El Paso, Texas. Serving current military personnel and veterans are all over our city. A few months ago, I interviewed two veterans that had served in World War II. And then I interviewed two veterans that served in the Vietnam War. And I continued to ask around, I need to interview someone about the Korean War. For the last several years, I've been associated as Uncle Sam with the Airborne Museum on Fort Boulevard here in El Paso, Texas. One of my former students, Joe Hernandez, invited me to attend that program several years ago. So I do have someone here from the Airborne Division. I want to dedicate this program today to some Korean veterans. Another person that I did programs with at different events, especially Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW, was Joseph C. Rodriguez, Medal of Honor winner, and he won the Medal of Honor during the Korean conflict. He was native El Pasoan. Well, he grew up in California, born there, but came to El Paso and working here. Ended up going into the military service in the Army. They sent him to Fort Carson, Colorado, got his training. Then he was sent to Korea as the war broke out. In early 1951, he arrived in Korea in just a matter of weeks. He had engaged in combat, killed 15 enemy forces, wiped out 5 emplacement areas, and then was called back to Washington, D.C. in 1952, and President Truman awarded him the Congressional Medal of Honor. He died several years ago, but we remember Joseph C. Rodriguez as a great American. And then two of my former students that I became close to, they lived in my neighborhood when they were in my classes. One of them, Nick Nealio, and another one, Chuck Lucy. These were men that sacrificed so much for the United States of America. I have another veteran today now with me at this program, Vern Walden, with the Airborne Division Association. We're glad to have you. I see you at some of those events out there.
And the Special Forces.
You were with the Special Forces. We're glad that you're here today, and you're going to tell us something about the Korean War, and you're involved in it. Now, this is not a history lesson for us. This is a conversation.
I see.
Tell me about when you went into military service.
April 29, 1946.
Okay. After World War II.
Yes.
Okay, soon after World War II, you went in, and then you were sent where? Where was your duty assignment?
I was sent to the 24th Infantry Division in southern Japan, and I was assigned to one of the 3 regiments, the 19th Infantry Regiment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then, well, how did you get into the Korean conflict? When it broke out in 1950, what were you doing, and how did you end up in Korea?
At the time they came across the border, we were in south of Tokyo. The Marines was teaching us amphibious maneuvers, how to waterproof our vehicles.
Okay.
So it took us 3 days to load up and get back to our base camp. We boarded a LST about 7 o'clock in the morning on the 5th, and at 1700 hours or 5 p.m. we landed in Busan, Korea.
Wow. Now you're talking about the cross the border. Now I don't have a pointer, but I did put up a map here of North Korea and South Korea. The orange part there is South Korea. And after the war, the Russians, the Chinese, and the North Koreans were competing for power and control. And so by crossing the border, you're talking about the communist forces on the northern side of the 38th parallel.
Yes.
They crossed into the south, and then there you were engaging in military combat.
Yes, it was just that swift.
Okay.
They had to jump on us because they knew they were coming and we didn't know it.
Now, weren't we kind of at a disadvantage because some of our troops were being broken up and scattered around, so we didn't leave as many there as we perhaps should have?
Exactly. They disbanded 2 infantry divisions in South Korea and sent those men to the different units all over Japan. Mm-hmm. We might have got 15 or 20. Every unit got some of those men.
Okay.
We were still under strength.
Okay. Now, when Joe Rodriguez was awarded his Medal of Honor and then had interviews after that, and occasionally would mention in some of the programs that we did together, he pointed out that he really was fighting hard because he was mad. Now, didn't you get mad sometimes when you saw what was happening to your buddies on either side of you?
Yes, and we were so helpless sometimes. We didn't stop to help some of them because we had to continue the war.
Right.
To continue the fighting. So we tried to get our wounded and back to safety, and yet we're trying to keep the enemy off of us. So it was not a pleasant time.
Were you confused about why we were in war? Wasn't there debate going on even among the troops as to why is this happening?
Well, we had no briefings prior. We had no knowledge of the intelligence that the Russians were doing. I don't know why our people in South Korea wasn't doing some intelligent work, but apparently peacetime, everything's quiet.
Right.
Just lived an easy life.
Oh my goodness.
But thank goodness we trained every day in the infantry, and the company I was in, heavy weapons company, the guys would train a year on the mortars, they know them backwards and forwards, and they would exchange with the platoon sergeants to the heavy machine gun platoon. So we were cross-trained in all the weapons, and that saved a lot of lives.
Oh, wow, that's
There
great.
wasn't a weapon that we couldn't handle, you know.
Now, I need to tell the audience something here. Vern has a little difficulty hearing me, and so we need to ask him, why is it you think you lost some of your hearing? Do you think you lost some of your hearing because of all the weapons that were firing? You served how many years in the military?
25 years firing weapons.
So 25 years of damage to your hearing.
To my right ear.
To your right ear. Okay. So it may sound like I'm shouting at Vern. I'm not angry at him. I'm not sending him on an errand. I'm having to try to be sure that he's hearing clearly the questions that I'm raising. Vern, it's so great to have you here under these circumstances. Now then, tell me about this. In fighting in Korea, then when you were engaged with the enemy in combat, I know that you had buddies all around you, and you were in the airborne. Did you parachute in at any time into Korea when you started engaging in combat, or did you just were shipped in?
We were just shipped there. I wasn't in the airborne when the war broke out.
Oh, okay.
Later, I went airborne.
Okay.
So we were strictly foot soldiers and infantrymen, you know.
Okay. Tell us about the weather that was there. We've seen the images of. I went out several days ago and took pictures at the Korean War Memorial area at Trans Mountain campus of El Paso Community College, where the great big flag is, put there by Flags Across America. And you see the image there of the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., and it shows the soldiers wearing heavy, heavy coats. Tell us about that.
The summers when we got there were very hot and sultry. They didn't have any paved roads, so everywhere we went in the trucks, the dust kicked up, and you was like a little dust devil when you got to wherever you were going that day.
Okay.
Then the winter set in, it gets 40 below zero.
Below zero?
Below zero.
Oh my goodness.
And the wind is blowing. And it's snowing. When the first snow come, we had no sunglasses. We got snow blind. You walk around like a mummy. You can't step over a limb or nothing, log or nothing, because everything's white. 3 or 4 weeks later, we got some cheap sunglasses in from Japan or China or somewhere, and that helped a lot. But the bad thing, when you went on a patrol in the wintertime, so cold, you have to work your boat on your rifle every couple of minutes or it will freeze up. 40 below, it will freeze up and you can't fire it.
Well, your body freezes up too.
So your body freezes up too.
Oh my word.
We didn't have all the sufficient clothing we should have had. So we had a lot of sickness and all from the cold weather, and besides so many being wounded and all, we couldn't afford to lose a man for no excuse, you know.
Oh my word. A trauma going on there in that war. Now, another thought here. The memorial out here says the Forgotten War, okay? Why is it called the Forgotten War?
I don't know. I'll never forget it if I live to be 100.
Yeah, well, yeah, you were in it.
That we're in it. I'll never forget it. But the Forgotten War,
Well, I think what the history books tell us is that we talked a lot about the greatest generation, the World War II veterans coming back and having all the parades and everything. And the Korean War was fought under the auspices of the United Nations, a joint operation.
Right.
And we never declared war. It was so-called police action. And you did not get the recognition that others got when you came back.
Exactly.
You were aware of that? How did you feel about that?
Well, you were so proud to get home, and I had been wounded and spent a month in the hospital, and I was engaged to the girl that I married, so
Okay.
I was so happy to get back, and yet I wondered what I left behind that I could have done, but we were so under strength, and we did 18, 20 hours a day, 24 hours, and pretty soon you become inefficient.
Right.
Ineffective. You just can't go up hills, down hills, through the rain, the monsoon season, and outnumbered and be very effective.
So you were exhausted. Now you mentioned something there I think we should show the audience here. You were awarded some medals for your service.
Yes.
In the Korean War. Tell us about these.
Those were given to us stateside by the representative from the president of South Korea. They came to recognize us because they didn't have time to have done it earlier.
Oh, okay.
So they got our name, rank, and serial number and looked us up, and here they come.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations on that. And
Well,
they
thank
gave
you,
you a
sir.
plaque. You haven't even unwrapped it. It still is in the plastic here. Thank you, United States of America, the Republic of Korea.
Yes,
So you have a lot to be proud of.
I'm very proud of that.
Oh, that's wonderful, that your service. Any other thing about that?
Well, I was on the front line for 12 months. They rotated alphabetically at the eight-month level they started. Well, I'm a W, so I'm on the tail end of the rotation. The day I was supposed to go home, the unit went on a company operation. Well, I've been on many, what's one more? You know, you get careless.
All right.
I went and got wounded and had to spend in South Korea a month in the hospital and was evacuated out at that time.
Well, then at home you have a Purple Heart.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, you know, we thank you for your service to this country.
Well, thank you.
And you bled for this country. And a lot of people today, now back then you had a draft. How do you feel about draft versus an all-military, volunteer military?
Well, I think that they'll get the volunteers by showing faith and taking care of us better than they did in Korea, you know.
Okay.
So I like the all-volunteer Army, and it works. And I continued to serve, and I served 3 tours in Vietnam. And I could have been home if I had wanted to, but I was patriotic enough, and I liked the Army.
Okay.
And I liked the people in the Army, so I stayed.
So what rank did you have when you retired?
Master Sergeant.
A Master Sergeant. The real hard workers of the Army, right?
Yes.
No 90-day wonders with the bars up here, but the real workers that get it all together.
Yes.
That's the way we look at it. Let me ask you then this historical question about General Douglas MacArthur. You were serving under General Douglas MacArthur, and he was removed by President Truman because it appeared he was too anxious to get into a war with China, and the United States wasn't ready to go back into big war, and Russia behind China.
We weren't ready, that's right. So we couldn't afford to get in it.
Okay. So you felt the president made the right decision if he was trying to get us into a big war with China?
Probably did. Probably did. And our division commander, General Dean, when they pushed us back to the Taegu, almost jumping off place, our general got captured. I was 100 yards from him when he got captured.
Oh my.
I had a machine gun, but they had got some of our uniforms and our helmets, and they were mixed in with us, so you didn't know who to shoot. If we'd have tried to capture him back, they would have killed him.
Okay.
So we chose to let him go, and he survived it and was returned to us.
Did you ever see Omar Bradley?
Never saw on my
Okay.
brother.
Well, he was at the high level in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
at that particular time, and many years later he retired here in El Paso and
I
died.
saw him here, but I didn't see him in service.
Yeah, and died here in El Paso.
Yeah.
But he was giving advice to President Truman that was contradictory to the advice that General MacArthur was giving
Yes.
about going into war with China. What are your other memories about the Korean War that really are vivid with you, that you remember?
Well,
Special crystal moments in your
the
life.
best came out of the men. We were in peacetime, we were relaxed, we were training, but when it got tough, the tough got going. So we all knew the weapons, and you learn very quickly when you're getting shot at. So we survived and have a record. Like I say, my outfit was 7 miles from China when General MacArthur wanted to go on through, and Truman pulled him out, and they pushed us on back. We didn't. When we went so fast to that point, when the trucks, the tanks, 90-ton Patton tanks would turn around to go back. When they run out of gas, they put a grenade in the tube, a thermite grenade in the tube, and left the tank sitting there. We had no gas.
Oh my.
So that hurts that we did. We would catch another vehicle. When your truck ran out of gas, they set it on fire. We'd catch anything moving.
Oh my goodness.
It was so cold.
Well, we all know that the Army moves on equipment, material, and food. You have to have it or you're not going to be able to function.
Exactly.
You've got to be able to do that. Were there any mentors or people that helped you especially to prepare to be a good soldier? Who were the people? You can name them by name and where they're from if you remember. Tell me somebody that really helped you to be a good soldier.
Well, the officers that I served under were young, very intelligent, and I followed them along, and I had the opportunity to go to officers candidate school, and I'd been a sergeant too long. I said, no, I don't want to start off being a second lieutenant, but I could have been an officer. So the difference in Korea and Vietnam, they just about forced our sergeant majors and master sergeants to take a commission. They had 18 years in the Army. They take second lieutenant, they lose money. But
I had a student named Jerome Batson in my early career here at Community College back in the 1970s. He just finished recently his autobiography, and he told me on the telephone, and he has in his autobiography, same thing. He had become a sergeant major, and they kept pressuring him to go to officers candidate school, polish up and get those bars, and he didn't want to do it.
they'd lose money.
That's weird, isn't it?
It's weird, but we had platoon sergeants, been platoon sergeants 10 years, and we had no officers, so they just about forced it on them, and they became a second lieutenant. 6 months later, there's a first lieutenant. So they made out okay, but still, they weren't prepared to jump from a sergeant to a lieutenant and lead a platoon. And we just didn't have enough men for them to do their job, and we didn't have enough men to do the job.
Okay, let's move now up to now. You're in retirement, but you're very busy. I see you at the Airborne Museum from time to time at different events.
Yeah,
Tell us about other things you're doing to help El Paso here in your retirement years.
Well, being a member of the Purple Heart, the Vietnam Veterans, I was in Vietnam 3 times. I'm an officer in the Vietnam Veterans. I'm an officer in the Purple Heart, the VFW, and for years I worked with the Boy Scouts, and now I support an orphan home in Tornillo. I'll make a trip out there about every 2 weeks with a truck full of goodies. They have 20 orphan children out there, and I've been doing that 14 years.
Oh my goodness.
Going there. So between that and like the Purple Heart, next week we start a Viola drive. I'll be at the commissary for about 10 days. And I stay busy with other assignments. I guess I wrote 14 guys up for the honors at our Fort Bliss Museum.
Right.
John Sabias put me in, and I was honored.
Okay.
I found out, what does it take? He told me, I know all the combat veterans. I must have put 13 or 14 in. I've got a list of them
Right.
at home, and they would not have been put in if I hadn't put them in. And
Right.
I put Bob Chisholm in, and
Right.
Beamy, and quite a few others. One man, Filipino, he was in the Filipino Scouts. He wasn't airborne, but he had a Purple Heart, and I put him in, and of course he was selected. There's about 20 Filipinos at this table that night. Were they ever happy, and was I happy, you know?
Wow. We're talking about the Airborne Museum and the honors of people that really serve this country.
Yes.
And you have been in tune with these people and knowing some of the things that they've done.
So just to get a guy, he's got to find his papers, and he's like me, they're stashed away somewhere, and he's got to present copies of this, and we make copies and give back to him.
Document. There's even been a scandal in this country in recent years of fake heroes, of people that fake
We
these
had
records
a
and
few
so
of those in
And that takes away from the
in
real
that
heroes.
time, and that takes away, you know.
It takes away from the real heroes. Also, I tell my students at community college, I try to be careful about using the word hero. It comes so easy. You can call anybody a hero just because they're wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
Just because you wear a uniform does not mean you do heroic things.
No,
Heroic
that's for
things are when you sacrifice of yourself for other people and for the nation.
Yes.
And so that's
The
part of it.
heroes that I know are very quiet people. It's nothing to brag about.
Right.
If you get in a conversation, it's nice to talk about, but I don't go around telling anybody anything as far as that goes. And over the period of years, a lot of guys come up, Vern, I didn't know you'd done this. I didn't know you'd done.
Right.
So,
Yeah, most real heroes are more modest than the fake heroes.
right.
They're not modest at all.
And most of them were wearing sergeant major stripes, and everybody knows you can find them
Just anywhere.
just anywhere. If I'm
Military
around
stores.
in 10 minutes, I can tell you if he's fake or not, you know.
Right.
Because the real heroes don't talk about it unless you ask them a question and tell you, but they don't go around extra bragging and I was there and I did this, and they wasn't even there, you know.
Yeah, I can tell the difference from a war story and a braggadocio story.
Yeah.
And someone really telling their feelings. Well, any last words? Do you want to give let's see, I think we've previously given the airborne number, any of that. Would you want to give a telephone number, anything for people that want to know more about the Korean War?
Well, I'd be pleased.
Okay. Or we can just pull up from information. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pull up some information about the Airborne Museum with telephone number, website. We've done that before. And then we're also hoping that we can pull up some good pictures of the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Because this is an image of it as we have it here in El Paso, Texas. And I'm so proud to go out there from time to time as Uncle Sam and participate in various events with different groups.
Well, Las Cruces has many veterans, and we just sent them to Washington to see all the memorials and museums and the Purple Heart. We donated $500 to them.
The honor flights or whatever they call them.
Honor flight.
Honors flights, it's people that have never been able to see some
Right.
of these monuments in Washington, D.C.
So we just, Bob Chisholm's recommendation, I second it, that we send them $500. So I wrote the check, I'm the treasurer also, and sent it to Las Cruces, and they acknowledged they got it, of course. And we feel good to be a small part of that.
Well, it's said that thousands of World War II veterans are dying every week because of age. And so some of them have not been able to see some of these. And you see them in their wheelchairs and their canes and so on, getting on the airplanes. And your heart goes out that they're going to get to go see these monuments to World War II, to Vietnam, and to Korea now. And that's another one. The Korean War Monument came later than some of these others.
Yes.
Because it really was, in some ways, a forgotten war. And there's a sad aspect of it, but now it is the fact that we're now recognizing those of you that participated in it. And you're just one representative of thousands of people that served in Korea.
Sure.
And thousands of people that died in the war in Korea. And there again, we want to thank you for being on the show and talking about it.
Well, I can tell you one small story.
We have about 2 minutes, 1 2-minute story.
Well, okay. Me and my buddy that handled an 81 motor, it takes 3 people. 2 of us did this. He went from here to the front door down the hill to get water. He said, go with me. I said, I got to stay with the gun. He went down and got captured. There was a little building there like a way station or police station or something. Mm-hmm. On the blackboard, he put, Lucky was here. Well, he went north, and when he went in the train, he went out the back door and in the river, and he's a good swimmer. Mm-hmm. And he came to safety. So, of course, back home, everybody's asking him about our guys in the 19th Infantry. Right, Sergeant Walden, here come all these letters from mothers and girlfriends and all. You know, where's my soldiers? Well, I would just say, he transferred to another unit and we lost contact, you know, something like that. But after I rotated home, Lucky got home, of course, we were together 4 years in Japan, so we were very close. I stopped by Fort Leonard, Missouri to visit him. After him being a prisoner, he wasn't a prisoner very long because he escaped. But of course, he went on home, and I stopped by and I got to see him, and I had been married about a week and had my wife with me. I was on my way to camp. So we had a grand little 2 hours there then he had to report back. So
well, those are the kind of crystal moments you have in your brain and you will never forget.
They will be there forever.
Vern, it has been a true pleasure to have
Well, it's been my pleasure
on this program. And we wish you well in everything you do and all those volunteer activities around El Paso. Thanks for watching Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins.